So thank you everyone for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon. We are going to be having a magnificent discussion about kind of the economic changes that are happening and kind of what that means for revenue operations leaders like ourselves. Joining us are a number of folks that have kind of been through it before, know what the hallmarks are and how to address them. But I will pass things over to Neil here. Neil Alvanzo is our Senior Director of Delivery, who will get us started. So Neil, over to you.
Hey, absolutely. Thanks, Kyle. Well, happy Tuesday to everyone, where you're calling, whether it's morning, afternoon. You had choices in terms of where you can be, but thank you that you're here now. So I fully appreciate it. So why are you here? I want to really, this is not a doom and gloom conversation, but it's really one for awareness and to offer some perspective just in terms of, well, what can I do now if things do change? As we talk about the facts of what's going on in the market, we know that interest rates are rising. Investors are becoming more judicious in terms of what they're spending and what their return on interest is going to look like. But we also have to realize that during the pandemic, B2B SaaS firms experienced unprecedented levels during the pandemic. So while analysts they're seeing some churn and some sales, in some industries are flattening, we have to realize that, well, we can think about this and we can have a conversation that makes sense. But more importantly, what are those tools? What are those techniques? And more importantly, the behavior that you need to have in place to effectively prepare. There's three areas that we're going to be looking at today with our panelists. There's operational efficiency, there's resource management, and there's budget management. And lastly, people development. And with that, I would ask that if you've got questions, feel free. We've got Kyle and myself will be serving as moderators, but we want to really make sure that our panelists can share with you their thoughts, their perspective, recommendations, and anything of that matter. So sit back, enjoy, and we're going to first open up talking about operational efficiency. And as I'm handing the mic over, our panelists can introduce themselves as well. Okay, great. So when we talk about operational efficiency in a down market, what warning signs indicate your personnel and operations may be changing?
Yeah, I'll take that one first. So I'm Lisa Daly. Nice to be here. Thank you so much, OpFocus, for the invitation to participate in this event. So Lisa Daly, I am the VP of Revenue Operations and Planning for FloQast, located in LA, California. So what are the warning signs that we really look for? You're looking for, you know, how are your sales doing? What are you actually predicting? How are you forecasting? How is the management really talking about the next phase of the company? Are they still going to predict that hyper growth situation, or are we going to start seeing a little bit of that slowdown and our forecast is going to maybe decline a little bit more in that environment? So those are some of the warning signs that I really look for, that I really key in on and lean into when I'm thinking about how to reorganize my team or how to really think about operational efficiency as it goes into sort of that next phase of the company.
Yeah, and I think that's a great comment, Lisa, and I'll chime in as well. My name is Ann Neir, and I'm the Vice President of Revenue Operations for Cockroach Labs in New York, but I actually sit in Silicon Valley. So we got some West Coasters here on the line. I think Lisa's comment is spot on around looking at the forecast, the predictability, changes in trends. And the one thing I would add to that is just keep, you know, we try to take that down to as much of a granular level as possible. Like, where are we seeing some of the shifts in business? I think both of our respective companies have different segments, you know, different parts of the market, et cetera. So we're always, you know, kind of taking those trends down to a deeper level to say, well, are we seeing a little bit of change here? Maybe not so much in this area. Where should we lean in, you know, overall? And then the other piece is just listening to customers, which I think Lisa alludes to as well. What are we hearing customers say? You know, if deals are starting to, you know, maybe shift around a little bit, you know, maybe certain parts of your target market or your target accounts are, you know, hey, we're going to shift this budget, you know, just a little bit longer, et cetera. you get even deeper listening with customers to also try to see what some of those warning signs are.
And just to layer on to exactly what Ann is saying is when you actually start looking at your micro data as it relates to what's happening in the trends of your opportunities, what are your customers saying? Really, for us, looking at, becoming very data focused, trying to look at what's happening in your closed lost opportunity. What are those customers saying? How many of your closed lost opportunities are moving to no decision or timing or loss of budget? Those are also really key indicators as revenue operations teams that there might be a shift that we need to focus on in strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate the fact that you're both involving a customer-centric perspective. Absolutely great. So as we still think about operational efficiency, and it's from a foundation and the fundamentals for success, how do you build a foundation for operations, automation, and data to support responsible growth for your organization?
For me, it's literally what you just said, Neil. It's everything around operational efficiencies. When I start seeing that shift, I will hyper focus on, and anybody who's worked with me before will tell you this, on automation. How do I continue to do more with less? Because I could see that I'm probably not going to get the headcount growth I want or desire in the following quarters, especially if this trend continues. So I really look at what are all the things that we're doing as an organization? What are all the touch points across our systems and operations that I can further automate that's going to drive more productivity in the field so they can focus more time on selling? That period is really key for us so that when we come out of this, we have a better, scalable, repeatable business that we can grow on.
Yeah, and just to chime in from a related angle, and 1000% support Lisa's comments around operational efficiency, just a maniacal, unrelenting focus on automation. I think that's so well said and brings a smile to my face and probably everybody on this line, right? It just warms your heart just a little bit. You're like, yes. The other part that Lisa and I talked about as we were kind of thinking about this session today was there's internal efficiency around tools and automation and process. It's also another very good opportunity to look at efficiency or productivity of your revenue organization. So, to Neil's point, as he was kicking us off, we're definitely in an interesting market. We are seeing, changes, whether it is in certain areas of the business. We don't know quite yet in a lot of ways what the outlook will be. But for us as operations leaders, this is an amazing time to say, where are we at from a productivity perspective? Let's just start with our organization. Start with sellers, and then you can kind of work up the stack of all those support teams as well. But start with your sellers and say, where are we at from a productivity perspective? This is the moment, if you haven't yet, like baseline productivity, really understand, what does your predictable engine look like? What's the shape of your predictable engine? And analyze those gaps and really dive into productivity across your roles, in your organization. And it's like you're taking a lens that is it 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, whatever it is, 24 months, whatever that is. You're taking that lens of where do we want to be in that period in the future? You're standing on stage at your next kickoff or, whatever your next milestone is. What's the productivity or efficiency of your sellers, of your SEs, of your CS teams, et cetera? So I think wonderful time to focus on productivity as well. And we may go deeper into some of those areas depending on some of your questions, but have a lot of passion around that topic for sure.
Yeah, I love everything that Ann just said, because that's so key when you want to get out of this economic interesting moment. I'm not going to call it a downturn. I'm going to call it an interesting moment. When you get out of this interesting moment, you're really going to have a very good grasp of how your sellers and their surrounding counterparts act or behave, or what your conversion ratios. And then you're going to be able to build a strategy on top of that to make sure that it continues to scale when you get out of this interesting moment. It's going to give you all the insight you need to help arm your leaders with how we should be going to market in this next phase. To do that, though, it's a really good opportunity if you haven't defined a strategy plan to dive into it head first and define a strategy plan. Because at this time, you want to make data-based decisions. You don't want to go anecdotal. You want to don't go with gut feels. You really want to be very maniacal on data-based decisions, because that's only going to arm you and your leaders to make more knowledgeable decisions moving forward.
And second, 1000%, double thumbs up, triple thumbs up. Wait, I have two thumbs. Double thumbs up to what Lisa was saying, because I think the really, really valuable point that she's making around data-driven decisions and, linking that to productivity, you can, like I said, if you haven't baselined your organization or you want to do a little refresh or you're tracking against areas, just roll up the sleeves and get in there. It's activity tracking. So meetings, outbounds, calls, it's role dependent, right? So commercial and enterprise and strategic will have different activities, but know what those are and baseline those. And to Lisa's point, where are you seeing some, some important kind of upward trends, and where are you seeing some challenging performance, and really get close to that. And so it's not just attainment, but it's other metrics around ASPs, win rate, deal size, activities. And it's also a good time, just on this topic, to benchmark a bit, to operations professionals on the line. If you haven't had an opportunity to either do that recently, or maybe in the role that you're in, it just hasn't, you've got a ton of different priorities, right? If it hasn't been one of those that's bubbled up, it's a very, very good moment to sort of benchmark. And there's lots of, external firms and things that can help with that as well, and really see where you're at amongst your peers. And then go get it, whether it's 6 months, 12 months, 18, whatever it happens to be.
Right. And in order for you guys to do that, right, you got to make sure that your sales reps are doing the right things inside their CRM. That's key, or you're not going to get the data output that you need. So it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier as it relates to operational efficiencies, right? All of that plays together so that you can come out much stronger than you guys were going in.
Yep.
I'm totally loving this. This is spoken as true RevOps practitioners. For those of you that are taking notes at home, here's what I'm hearing in terms of your takeaways. So we talked about the foundations for your operations. I'm hearing predictive analysis. I'm hearing baselining your productivity. Understanding, benchmark your data. What's your speedometer in your processes? Are you doing well? Are you maximizing what you want? Behavior, trend analysis, gap analysis. While these are big words, but there's something meaningful to these. So enough of that. We've gave some really beautiful examples, but I'm thinking, Ann, Lisa, can you have any real world examples in terms of what this operational efficiency look like in your organization?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go first. Like a lot of our Rev leaders, I'm not getting any new headcount moving into the next 2 quarters at all. So a lot of what I'm working on my team is sort of this operational game and this productivity game that Ann spoke about. I'm building further integrations into my ERPs from Salesforce.com so that I can automate the sending of sales orders to billing to revenue recognition, so that I can hopefully speed up the velocity of transactions we can push through with the amount of people we have today. So doing more with less. That's very cliche, so true right now. The other things I'm working on is productivity. We are spending a lot of time understanding conversion ratios, from different sales stages to close to win, close lost, diving into our close lost reasons and understanding what's going on. How do we improve that? And we're doing it not only at the regional level, but at the territory level to see if we're having different behaviors amongst each territories, and how can we get ahead of that so that we can have a better outcome. We're doing that across all of our sales reps. Everything that we measure at the region, at the territory level, we're measuring at the sales reps level as well from a productivity standpoint. So I'm kind of doing everything right that we're looking at. I'm leaning. We are also, as you know, Neil, we're rebuilding our Salesforce.com instance, working with OpFocus, so that we can again get a more efficient, more streamlined system out of this time, so that we can scale and move faster next year. So yeah, I mean, we're leaning into everything.
And by the way, Lisa, thank you for that unsolicited plug as well. Thank you for that. So, you had to mention that. So, and
You're like, wait, I'm also doing that.
Yeah, wait a minute.
I think such good examples. I'll list a couple from our side as well. And again, all in the vein of efficiency and productivity. One of the areas that, and I'll kind of round it out with some of the productivity, like very specific rep productivity, but just in line with some of the areas that Lisa's mentioned, which I think are so important. One of the things from an efficiency perspective that we've kind of put in place, it happens in the early stage of company. You buy a tool, you buy another tool, you buy another tool, buy another one. This might have an overlap with the third one you bought and the fourth one, et cetera. And at some point,
shiny object syndrome, Ann.
Shiny objects. I just like, I want it, right? I want it. But that was a Lord of the Rings reference there for anybody who needs that. But but now we have a situation where, and I'll just use managers as an example because it's so important to support managers' productivity and efficiency is, they're going over here to see conversations, they're going over here to see a forecast, they're going over here to see, well, let me see what the outbound and response rates and a variety of things are. So I'm going now to multiple places to try to triangulate how my teams are doing. And even when we, build up great dashboards and great analytics, when you want to drill in, you're still, I'm still kind of forcing people to go to 2 or 3 different places. So it's been one of our times to really lean into, a platform, to better integrations, to Lisa's point, to more specifically centralize information so that we're getting a better pulse on the business. So it's leading to better awareness and better insights. And we're also not like swivel chair management, right? Like I got to swivel over here and I got to swivel over there and I got to swivel over here. So that's one of our areas that we're focused on, just as some specific examples. The others are, and I'll put a couple together, and they will feel like the least glamorous of things that we do in operations, but they're so unbelievably glamorous. The first is handshakes, like just pressure test your process end to end with a customer-centric point of view. So as your customer goes through step 1, step 2, step 3, whatever your kind of journey is, how is your organization sort of those critical handshakes, those handoffs at each point along the way? And you as operations folks, we're always hearing feedback. Hey, this works, this doesn't work. Hey, can we change this, etc. So you're always in this process work, but like really get in there and are there some sand in the gears that you can take out that will streamline that customer journey and at the same time make your folks more efficient? So from first conversation or first touch all the way to first support ticket, how are those handshakes? And then the third one I would put in, and again, this is the operations work that will feel the most thankless of anything, is we've spent a lot of time cleaning up our CRM. So probably in a similar position that Lisa's in, we've had a CRM, it turned into a Frankenstein at various points. We've spent a fair amount of time just cleaning up accounts, deduping, etc. We're just leaning in like even more and enriching better our accounts. Going out to our target markets and saying, okay, EMEA, for example, in new regions and new markets that we're going into, we're going to proactively start adding, into our target markets. And we're going to go out and get those contacts, and we're going to buy folks and get things in the CRM. So we've just taken a very strong data lens, like the underlying data, not necessarily just the analytics, but just really getting into, let's just make sure that house is in tip-top shape. And more than that, let's start adding on to it while we're in this market. And while we know where our target market will be, like, let's lean in and get there. And again, that's data. That's like underlying data cleansing, which, people will glaze their eyes over, but they'll be so thankful that you did it.
Yeah.
Again,
I love that, because I'm literally going through the exact same initiative right now where you just need to dig in and clean the database. It's a perfect opportunity to really optimize what your database looks like. How are you setting up your account hierarchy? How are you cleaning the duplications and removing the noise? Because as all of us rev leaders understand, when our reps are struggling to hit their numbers or struggling in any way to sort of build their pipeline, they're going to become hyper-focused on, well, the systems aren't doing this for me, or I'm not getting this out of the system, or I don't have all my right accounts, or the account data is absolutely wrong. So it's a really good opportunity for you guys just to, like Ann said, lean in. It's not glamorous, but it's 100% necessary, and will quiet the noise as you continue to go through this time.
Yeah, such a good comment. Quiet the noise. It helps you put your arms around people and just hug them a little bit and just say, account data is there. You're going to be okay.
I fully appreciate that. Opinions, the market changed, but the data doesn't lie. I love the fact that Ann mentioned about it's really with the customer. What's that customer journey? You know, from that initial encounter, what are those handshakes, and where can we remove the sand out of the gears? So here it is. You've optimized your processes. You've done everything you can, but it's about people. Resource management. Here's the challenge. How do you fill those technical roles, sourcing the candidates, getting a good match? There's sunk costs just in terms of finding the right fit, working with third-party vendors. But your budget is not as generous as it was in the past. What's your initial response to finding the right people?
So I don't necessarily, I'm gonna take a little bit of a different lens, if that's okay, Neil.
Please do.
I think it's about prioritizing what you need as a company to continue to maximize your growth or get through some of these efficiencies that Ann and I discussed, right? So if it's actually cleaning your data, or if it's actually getting in a new enrichment tool that's going to, once you've done the cleaning, continue to make sure that your account or contact data is constantly updated for your team. It's up to us as leaders to understand what that case is and build the right ROI, not only for today, but how is it going to help us continue to scale and grow for the future. And I think if you can continue to do that, you're going to get the right support to get the right resources in, whether that is hiring a contractor, whether that is finding the right vendor, whether that is trying to find the right next FTE. So I think that is incredibly important, is to really just take a step back, understand the business problem that you're trying to solve with this ask, build the right business case and ROI, and then I think you'll find much better support.
Yeah, I super agree with Lisa. And I think that, you know, you're prioritizing, you're looking out in this period that we've described, that we're, each of us are managing through and leading through, what are, you know, even more surgical precision than we probably had in even prior, you know, months and quarters. Based on that prioritization, what are the right resources that you need? And I agree too with Lisa that it could be a blend of internal and external resources. We certainly use both, and it's been game changing for us. So it's not, you know, what's been important to us is, again, that kind of prioritization lens. Where can we get some very consistent and repeatable expertise, and not being sort of locked into, oh, hey, well, this has to all be internal. We have to all figure out how we grow and scale this really fast moving company, even in this period, still very fast moving company, and not being sort of locked into, well, it has to look like this or look like this, but really based on priorities, and just know that that blend of resources is some of the most important things I think that you can do.
Yeah, and understand from your priorities, when you're doing something like data cleansing, is that really required a full-time FTE, or is this a temporary resource to get you through this initial cleanse? And then you're getting tools on top of that, right, to make sure it's better. I mean, that's exactly what we're doing at FloQast. We're going through the data cleansing that Ann described, and we're bringing on contractors, because I know it's a level of effort, although hard and arduous. It's a 6-month level effort until I get more data enrichment tools on top of that, and I built the right policies internally to keep the database as clean as possible.
Yep. Agreed.
I appreciate that. This is good stuff. So I'm just going to replay what I'm hearing. I'm hearing justification. I love the fact that it's really about tailoring your opportunities, right? You're locked in. It's not like back in the day where you would put an ad in the newspaper, someone would fax you the resume. You've got to think, well, how can I share this work? What are those low-hanging fruit that it's going to be more financially feasible to have a third party do, versus we can save our more complex and business savvy technical issues for in-house. Having a growth approach, always understanding, what are we solving for? What are we solving for? So we've talked about resources, but now we've got this thing called a technology stack. How do you maintain your technology stack in terms of your licensing investment, the next new shiny instrument against your internal and external resource balance? How do you manage all of that in this world of being in an interesting environment?
Yeah, I don't know about you, Ann, but that's actually the hardest part,
That's
right?
hard.
That's the hardest part, because you're looking at operational efficiencies, and everything when you think about that is automation, and how do you continue to leverage what you have, which might require buying new tools. But you also have your wonderful sales leaders and sales teams who might have a little extra time in their hand, who might be getting introduced to all their new shiny objects, right? So trying to sort of balance that is incredibly fun, challenging, and a little bit stressful at the same time. So I would say for me, it's, again, it just goes back to prioritization. What are we trying to accomplish in the next 3 to 6 months, right? And reiterating that in every conversation we have. And how does that prioritization fit into our tech stack? How do I limit technical debt so that when I come out of this, I'm not worse off than when we got into this time period? And then, maybe putting off some of those shiny new objects, really digging in and figuring out what tools do we already have in-house that's going to solve the business problem that's being presented to us. And I think that's super important for everybody on this call as operational leaders, is everybody wants something new. This one tool is going to do this one process super, super well. That's great. But if we have a tool that solves 80% of the problem, and we've already made the investment, and there are things that we can do to maybe bridge the gap between 80 and 20% or 80 to 100%, dig into that, because you've already done the implementation. You already have it installed. You already have some of that change management already accomplished for that. That will make the adoption and the rollout of that problem a lot easier. But always tie it back to the business problem. Always tie it back to what your strategy is as a company for the next 3 to 6 months. And then from there, that will help you either make the right technical decision or, push back a little bit.
Yeah. And I think such good comments. And, it relates back to some of the earlier discussion around when I was saying, hey, we bought this tool, then we bought this tool, then we bought this tool. Now I've got people swiveling to different places. And so, and on the one hand, the example before of, okay, can we, pick a direction and sort of consolidate a bit, even if you consolidate a little bit over time, totally fine. But you're starting to pick a direction and saying, okay, we're going to drive efficiencies. We're going to think about a more thoughtful integration or platform, et cetera. So that's certainly one part of it. But I think the other part, and I was smiling as Lisa was kind of going through some examples, is it's also been a very good time for us, and you all, maybe in a similar position, where it's also kind of a time to be a bit ruthless of your stack and what's in there. And I really like Lisa's example of, listen, if it solves 70%, 80%, 85%, we may not need 5 or 6 tools that do directionally the same thing. Now, people have their preferences. Hey, I really like this one. It has the best information. It enriches the best, or it does X or Y. You gain efficiencies by getting people very, very, very good at the tools that they have, whether it's workflow, whether it's information, whatever it's designed to do to help their business. You gain so much efficiency and productivity by getting folks very, very good at the tool stack that you have, rather than, well, hey, just in case you can't find it here, let's give you another one here. Let's give you another one here. Let's give you another one here. And it also gets hard for us too, as operations leaders, because that is what turns or can turn your CRM into a little bit of, like Lisa said, technical debt, Frankenstein, et cetera. And so what we've tried to do in a similar way to Lisa's comments is it's always about prioritization. So you're linking it back. Efficiencies are the name of the game, which is always the case for all of us. But like we said before, this is a very, very, very good moment to just get in there and say, we are all about efficiencies, and then just be ruthless. Something's coming up. I can say right now, I've got a tool coming up for renewal in a month, and see ya, right? Out of the stack that we have, you're the least used. You've got some favorites and some some fans, but again, we're just going to help people, use the stack that we have. And again, that's driving efficiencies, both in people's workflow and their process, but also it's budget that you're putting back into the coffers, which is also good.
Yeah, and keep it back to its productivity, right? The more swivel
Totally.
chairs you have your reps going to, oh, go to this tool for this part, and then swivel over here to go to this tool for the next. That's time wasted that they could be on the phone, that they could be following up on a sales deal, that they could be in a meeting, right?
Yeah.
So you need to really focus on, and like Ann said, be ruthless about what your technical stack looks like right now, for the next, period of time.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I think there's some winning terms I want to highlight here. It's definitely an opportunity cost, but I think I'm kind of going back to my business school days when I didn't get it, but I think this was a clear example. When you start thinking about economies of scope and economies of scale, right? If you have a tool that can cover 80% of your business function, that's significant. So focusing on that 80% and the value that you can get is absolutely critical. So we've talked about operational efficiency, resource management, budget management, but at the end of the day, it's still about people, right? And here it is. It's a wonderful opportunity to think about, okay, here's the staff that I have. How do I think about investing in my internal team? So as we have our RevOps leaders that are out there listening now or might be listening later, what recommendations are there for finding local talent to meet your sales force? And I'll remove the word sales force and I'll just say your technology needs.
And I'm going to actually let you take this one. In our previous conversation, you really had some great insights.
Yeah. Yeah. So Neil, do you want to focus on finding talent or managing and developing the folks that are on our team?
I want to, good call out. Let's carve out towards managing and developing the resources that you have on your team, since this is around people development.
Yeah. No, I think it's such a great topic in the context of this discussion too, that, a bit to Lisa's point earlier, it's not as if any of us, have a blank check over the next months and quarters to just continue to grow. And as operations leaders, we're always doing that thoughtfully anyway, right? It's just now we may be in a place where, okay, we have to do a bit more with less. We have to kind of think about taking the hill 2 hills over, et cetera. And while today we've talked about, automation and tools, process efficiencies, being ruthless about our tech stack and how we manage the business, et cetera, the existing members of our team, this is also a great opportunity for people development. Whether it's, hey, I have existing members of my team. Well, actually, I'll take one step back. Think about your organizational design, because again, you're driving efficiencies and productivity for the long term. So it's a very nice moment to think about, okay, am I kind of growing the pillars the way that make the most sense for the business? Am I investing in people and roles in a way that will really continue to scale this organization? So I think that's one piece. The other piece is, where can you provide exposure for team members? Whether it's cross initiatives on the team, whether it's, we're operations professionals, we live and breathe in cross-functional collaboration. Are there opportunities to get some of your folks involved in those cross-functional initiatives, get exposure outside the organization? I've got a couple of projects right now where not only is it cross-functional, but for a couple of members of my team, it'll be a really nice stretch, right? A really nice stretch assignment that they're super pumped about. It's work that they have a lot of passion about. And it's important in this this efficiency kind of mindset. And it's going to be a great development opportunity for them. And so while Lisa and I have been talking, a lot about the infrastructure, ways that we make that better and more productive, it's a great time to think about your folks and how can this moment, be the time where people learn the most, get exposed the most, grow their career the most. And the last thing I'll say on this, and then definitely welcome Lisa and Neil's comments as well, is across our teams, and depending on one's career trajectory, you've people on your teams who haven't been through these markets before, potentially, right? Like we've seen this depending on one's career, right? These kind of ups and downs and, various ways in which the market shifts. If you've been on an IPO trajectory in your company, which I think some folks on this line have been or are, and maybe that's going to be a little bit delayed based on X or Y. These are the times that people can learn the most and really gain the most from their role. And honestly, it's kind of the first time that a lot of people have seen this, again, depending on their career trajectory. So like really get in there and help people get the most out of this, because it can be a really great time for people side of things as well.
No, I loved, and I feel like Ann and I have probably lived very similar lives, because there's a lot,
Lisa.
Yeah. There's a lot that she's saying that she's doing that I'm actively doing as well in my team. I mean, I've been in sales operations or revenue operations, that's now coined, for a little over 26 years. I started my career as a sales admin, and at every point in my career, I had this mentor. I got really lucky that I always had these wonderful mentors that helped me define what my career growth was. That gave me this opportunity to sink or swim, take risk with projects to fail, so that opportunity to learn from that failure. And at this point with my team, I try to reinstill those exact same lessons, right? It's a great opportunity for you guys to say, what do you want to do in your career? What are the projects that right now that are super interesting for you that's going to help you grow?
Yeah.
So same thing, I'm doing stretch opportunities. I mean, I'm having teams present to senior management, give them that visibility, give them that opportunity and those presentation skills, get them their name recognition in some of these cross-functional teams. You know, give them the opportunity to fail so that we have this wonderful learning lesson to get things better the next time. It's the perfect opportunity to really give that to your team. We have, you know, contractors coming on board. As I mentioned, I'm giving those and allowing first-time managers who've never managed people the opportunity to manage these contractors, right? Because that is a part of their career path. So loved everything you said. I think as operational leaders, it's on us to build the next generation of operational leaders. And so really taking the time right now to invest in your people, make sure that you are fitting their needs so that when they leave your company, they're moving on to something bigger and better. That's always my goal with my team.
Yeah, very cool.
This is absolutely wonderful. And you know, it's amazing because what I'm hearing in both of you is really this notion of being cross-functional. So this mindset of starting a career as a widget maker and working through that and finishing as a widget maker, that has not served us well for some companies. But being able to ask people, hey, what is that thing that you want? What is the thing that resonates with you? How do we create an environment that's malleable? But more importantly, we can find those strengths and we can have these win-wins. So here it is. We're going great with time. Both of you have the microphone still. As you think about, you've got RevOps leaders out there. What is it that you'd like to communicate, whether it's in terms of recommendations or something I wish I knew, either earlier in my career or where things are trending? Anything you'd like to share with our audience?
I'll go first. I think the biggest lessons in life that I've learned in my career is kind of what I just sort of spoke about, is that it's okay to take risk. It is okay to feel uncomfortable, to challenge yourself to feel uncomfortable, because some of the biggest growth you're going to experience is in those moments. I'm a huge believer in the growth mindset. I'm a huge believer in taking risk. I think one of the things that I love most about operations and why I've stayed in it my entire career is you can be an entrepreneur here in this role. You have the opportunity to come up with some very creative processes, very creative ways to approach a problem. I love living in a moment of chaos and finding order to that chaos. I think that's the best part of being in this operational role. And you get to do that because you're so cross-functional. This is one of the only roles that touches revenue at the very beginning. This is the only one of these roles where you're also touching product. You're also touching corporate G&A. You're touching legal. You're touching sales, right? So, and to do that, you have to be able to have that entrepreneurial spirit to understand how are all these things going to work together so that you can help this company move forward and meet their goals. So yeah. That's the advice I would is embrace it, take it, think creative, don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah, I love that so much. And it's such a great nomenclature to say an entrepreneurial mindset, because it is. I mean, you're even when you've done this, the number of years that Lisa and I have been doing it, and probably a number of you on the line, every situation is different. I mean, every role is different. Different companies have context. I mean, you're always building, and I think that's such a great comment. The area I would put out, it's kind of in line with the kind of last section of the discussion here today, is, you know, everything that Lisa's saying around take risks and don't be afraid to fail and grow, and just, you know, lean in and learn, etc. Those are such wonderful comments. And I would add to that, especially as operations leaders, and even if you're on that path, you might be on that trajectory, but you're earlier in your career, or maybe on this line, you don't manage people quite yet, but you want to. Even if you're an individual contributor, you're still thinking about service, and you're still thinking about how you help others, how you help teammates, how you kind of win together as you go forward. And I think that's one of the things that in operations, because we're so cross-functional, we sit at the apex of what's most important at a company in so many ways, that, you know, not only is it the people development discussion that we had here at the end, but it's kind of taking that mindset as you go forward, ongoing, that it's very much, I think about it very much as a servant leader or as a service, you know, opportunity. It's an inverted org chart to me, right? I come to work every day to open a window, to open a door, to have a discussion, to get something out of the way. To my purpose and mission is to help people be successful on my team, but also those that we work with, and extend that out. And so you kind of take that growth mindset, like, let's do it, let's grow, let's learn, let's don't be afraid to fail. And then helping people along the way, it's gold, right? Having both those things together is just pure gold.
I fully appreciate it. And I could tell you, working with both of these wonderful organizations, both Ann and Lisa, definitely subscribe to the notion of, you know, leaning forward. I can get that from the individuals that report to them, as well as the partnership. We've got a few minutes here. Kyle, I think, can we take some questions from those that are on, if you either through the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask any questions for our panelists?
I think you're on mute, Kyle.
Oh, God.
Sorry.
Your mute function is working.
No, thank you for stopping me before I kept going. But yes, the Q&A is open, and we are able to unmute you. So please, if you do have questions, I'm sure that Lisa and Ann would be very excited to answer them. So.
Yeah, and until we get something, I'm curious here. You know, Lisa, you mentioned something that was pretty interesting about this concept of RevOps. I love the term in terms of it's the culmination of various pieces of an organization, but from a promoter standpoint, in terms of RevOps, what it is, what it should mean, anything you'd like to share with those who are at various career points in terms of what RevOps means to you and what that should look like in an organization?
Oh, that's a tough one, because it's been sales operations for the majority of my career.
Yeah.
Revenue operations has sort of been coined in the last year, 2 years maybe. But I think for me, revenue operation is really all the disciplines that us as leaders, or if you're working in one of those disciplines, that we need to attain to help the organization meet its strategic goals, whether that's IPO, whether that's getting acquired, right? Revenue operations, as Ann just said, is the apex to everything that's going to impact that growth. That's commission for your sales team, that's deal desk, that's order management, that's systems and technology, that's database managers, right? Your traditional sales operations around processes and policies. Everything around sort of what you would need to help that organization is what revenue operations is to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's such good comments, and it's so interesting, right? Because it's been sales operations. I mean, RevOps has been what do we think?
I think last year or so, yeah.
Yeah, it's like very, very, very recent. And the way the way that I've been thinking about it, and because as operations leaders, particularly in kind of younger companies on my side, I've been in younger companies the last few, you're also just raising awareness too of what it is that we do and what's our remit and our scope and things. And so one of the ways that I've tried to think about it is revenue, right? So our remit in our context is, from early touch and early discussion of the customer, from the first discussion to first support ticket. And so it is that kind of full revenue journey of the customer of, hey, I'm at the very, very top of the funnel and I'm interested in this, in what you have, all the way through the process to, not just sales, fulfillment, et cetera, but all the way to customer success, to retention expansion, to technical support, and more. And so I've been trying to kind of think about, and that is broader than what a typical sales operations would have been in the past. And so I think in some ways, organizational change like this is just kind of catching up. Like, what does this really mean in real life in companies? And certainly it varies a lot, for sure.
So this is great. Hey guys, the questions are coming in, so we may have to do a rapid fire until Kyle tells me time is up. I'm going to jump around here in the questions. This is a great one. First question, and either one of you can take it. How long do you typically expect your return on automating processes? Can you provide specific examples, maybe groups of areas of typical automation?
Do you want to go, Lisa, or do you want me to take? I can grab this one.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll let you grab it.
Yeah, but chime in with an example, because I know you and I've got a couple. I will. It depends on the automation, for example, but I'll use being as specific and as prescriptive as possible in your automation planning, in your ROI, and what the return is expected to be. One good example is automating from other ways to do order forms and quotes to putting in a full CPQ kind of system. And the return on that, which is a big investment, but the return on moving from a more manual order form, kind of manual pricing and quoting structure, to having price books, configuration in the system. I mean, we saw an impact in 1 quarter, and we measured that based on time and clicks. We measured that based on deal velocity and speed. And then it continued to improve as people adopted and as people moved forward. But I mean, we would expect to see return pretty quickly. I don't know, Lisa, if you have a good example too.
No, I think we actually just rolled out our CPQ too in April of this year. So no, I think the same thing, right? Taking that fully manual process and automating it's key. We didn't measure it in clicks, but we measured it in the how fast and velocity we can actually get the transactions out the door. We also saw that a lot more of our deals could use our standard CPQ quoting functionality versus having to take things offline and do a manual process. I'm saying that in, I think last quarter we had a little over almost 650 transactions, which is pretty strong. And I was able to manage that all with one deal desk person. So that also tells you to the level of automation that you can get and how quickly you can get that return. The other thing is, as Ann was saying, is investing in your database, right? Maybe inputting all of your TAM inside the database ahead of time so that your reps don't have to go hunt and pick for those accounts as you're building out in new regions. We did that exact exercise last quarter, and I'm already getting an ROI with our first deal closing on it this quarter, right? So depending on how you prioritize your initiative, how clean you are about your implementation and understanding what your definition of success is, you can see your return in, a quarter or two, has been my experience.
Great. I'm going to keep going here. I've got another question. So there's a lot of concern in the marketplace with even some folks being nervous. How do you, as a RevOps leader, set the right tone so that the company culture and team dynamics can perform at its best?
So I'll start, and then Ann, feel free to chime in. I don't necessarily know if it's just RevOps leaders that need to set that tone. For us, it's really been set by our CEO and our CRO, right? their level of confidence that they have in our company and their level of confidence that we have in our team makes it very easy for me to pass that level of confidence on to my team, who is prioritizing what we need to do as an operational team to continue to move forward. What is it that we're going to prioritize? What are the integrations we're going to work on? How we may not be able to grow our team, and that's okay, because we're going to do everything around you to support you through this period. So for me, it's really listening to the messaging, and my leaders are very vocal about that messaging, that we're okay. This is not as bad as everyone seems to believe right now. And then allowing us to take that and regurgitate that down to our teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think good comments. I think and I think in a similar vein to Lisa's, I think one of the most important things, and again, these are things that you're always doing in terms of how you lead, but maybe you kind of double into it a little bit more, is, at this time, what are the most important priorities of the company? Those, you're getting those, and if not, go get those, right? And make sure you've got very clear line of sight, up to your revenue organization, up to, broader company, et cetera, and really connecting what your team is doing. And again, you're always doing this, but it's pressure testing that. It's being overly communicative of, hey, we're prioritizing these 5 things. There's 10,000 things that we could do on any given moment, but it's these 5, these 3, these 8, and here's exactly how they're driving, X and Y initiatives forward. Like, it's the moment, I think, not to take for granted that people are making those connections, but very specifically as leaders say, here's what we're doing to further this, this initiative at the company, or this growth of the company. And I think not only does that help people, understand, okay, got it, hey, we are doing the right work and we are focused in the right ways, but it's also, I'm doing something valuable, right? I'm a member of this team, and I have my hands and feet and arms and legs, in some of the most important work. And I got that, right? Like, that's helping to drive something forward. So I think it really serves those purposes. So really transparent is very important in this time. And then just connect the dots, like hardcore. When you think you've connected them, connect them again, right?
Kyle, do we have time for one more question, or
Yes, we have time
okay,
for one more.
I'll go. I've got a clarifying question. It's for the both of you. As we talked about automation, so the question is, it sounds like you're recommending prioritizing automation prior to budgets being modified, so that when it happens, your organization has in place efficiencies. Is that correct?
I would say from my experience on what I'm doing right now, absolutely, right? I am very focused on automation, and before potential budgets gets cut as we move into the next fiscal year, so that knowing my team isn't going to be growing next year, I can be as efficient as possible.
I would agree with that, definitely. And I think probably Lisa and I are both this way. We're always, kind of moving the pieces around on the board a little bit and saying, okay, yeah, I'm building this part of the infrastructure because we're going to be there, down the way. But probably a little more so now, for sure. And so definitely prioritizing budget before any changes would be made. But even then, even after changes are made, I mean, I'm already seeing the couple of chess pieces, kind of move on the board a little bit and saying, okay, this is going to be this is where I'll make another trade-off potentially. If I need to make a trade-off, this is where I'll make a trade-off, a quarter from now. Okay, got that. And because it's something that's really important that we continue to drive automation.
I fully appreciate it. Kyle, I'm going to do a time check because I know that we had to talk about some upcoming events. Are we good with our topics and our questions?
Yeah, I think we are good. So as everyone knows, Dreamforce is right around the corner. OpFocus will be there. We're extremely excited to kind of reconnect with the SaaS community. And if anyone is there, or your team's going, or if you just live in the San Francisco area, we are doing a couple of events that we would love for you to join us at. The first one here is a kind of a networking cocktail hour. It's at a speakeasy style bar in a pawn shop. It's very cool. Very excited that it's going to be taking place 1 week from today, starting at 6:30 and going until 8:30. The next one is a fantastic catamaran tour around San Francisco Bay. It'll pass by the Golden Gate Bridge, Alcatraz, hors d'oeuvres and drinks, and the greatest minds in RevOps. So we'd love for you to join us for that as well. And then our founder and resident Salesforce MVP, David Carnes, is doing a couple of speaking sessions at the event. So the first one is a deep dive into dashboard components. He is a absolute wizard at dashboards and reporting in general, so you will be sure to learn a ton. And the second one here is there are 2 sessions, but it is talking all about sales metrics. So that's going to be in small groups, and you'll be able to kind of interact with him in a more one-to-one manner. So if you're there, or if your team's going, or if you just live in the area, we would love for you to join us. We're really excited to reconnect with everyone after a bit of a hiatus.
Great. Kyle, thank you for sharing. And Lisa, thank you. I'm absolutely grateful that you had an opportunity to spend with us, share your perspective, your experiences. We're absolutely excited about our continued partnership. For those that were here, thank you for being here. If you're listening after we spoke, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the OpFocus, the hosting company on this. Thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.